Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Inferno. We are getting ready for Week 8. We're almost halfway through the fantasy season, and at this point, some of us are just thinking, when is this thing going to be over? The train wreck continues, but we're here to help you this week. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions. We'll have lots of answers, and we've got lots to talk about. But first, before we get to that, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Frazier, how are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
I am good. Thank you very much. Bryce, good as always. I'm going to take it.
Yep, I'm always good. Thanks for asking, Brad. How are you?
Even after benching your starting quarterback, you're still good, eh?
I want him to go spit him at this point. As well.
You know what? But that's the way this season has gone. Anything's possible. I mean, we're starting to see some of the trade deadline stuff start early. I know the Dallas Cowboys and Bengals are in sell mode, obviously selling off pieces of the defenses that probably aren't going to help them this year anyway. But it's interesting. It's really interesting to see kind of how things are transpiring. I'm hoping this is a hot and heavy deadline. Like, that'd be great. We get a lot of moving pieces and just see what happens. But on that note, Mr. Sullivan, what do we got? What are we talking about news and notes wise tonight?
Well, let's start off with the prize of the fantasy asset pool and Christian McCaffrey. He's been practicing all week. He's been designated to return from IR. He has not yet been activated from injured reserve. For both of you, and I'll start with you, Bryce, does CMC play this Thursday night?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not an insider, of course, but I hope he does. Obviously, he was the most exciting player last year at the running back position. So obviously we want to see him play, but that's going to be up to the coaching staff. Unfortunately for fantasy owners, or even, I guess not necessarily Panther fans, Mike Davis has stepped up and been absolutely great as a running back, not only just in fantasy, but just overall for the team. So they're not going to be in any rush to bring Christian McCaffrey back. But if he's practicing all week and he's not limited, I don't see why they wouldn't. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I got to think that he's probably a long shot to go this week. I don't think they're going to be in a hurry. Obviously, 3 and 4, they're not right now with the way the NFC is. I mean, they could still be a fringe playoff team if they get hot at 3 and 4. I mean, the way it's going, but I don't know that you want to rush him back. I found it interesting though. He was healthy for 2 games, and in 2 games he had 41 rushing attempts. Through 5 games, Mike Davis has only had 71. So obviously we know when McCaffrey's out there, they're just going to load him up with at least rushing attempts. Obviously there's receptions in there as well, but Davis has done fine. I mean, he's produced well. I think when McCaffrey comes back, there's no doubt that he's going to get the lion's share, and Mike Davis will kind of be relegated to after the first week. I think the first week it'll kind of be a snap count, make sure McCaffrey's healthy, but I don't think that's this week. So for those of you that think Mike Davis is going to have a big workload once CMC's back, I certainly wouldn't bank on it. He's probably going to get in a 5 to 10 touch a game type situation, I would expect, because CMC is just clearly the best athlete and player on that team. You can't let him ride the pine for a guy who's bounced around the league in his 4 or 5 years in the league. So what about you, Mr. Sullivan? How are you feeling about CMC and Mike Davis?
I don't think CMC goes this week. Obviously, I feel good about him coming back. And, I think that they spent a lot of money on this asset, and it makes the most sense for them to ensure that he's 100% before he returns to the field. They don't have a juggernaut of an opponent this week. Mike Davis will be just fine against Atlanta if need be. So I think he sits out 1 more week and he comes back ready to rock and roll, and hopefully where he left off in week 9. So, Brad, you kind of answered my next 2 follow-up questions, but I'll ask him anyway. If you own CMC and he is somehow active this week, do you start him?
I mean, against the Falcons, I think you have to, because that's just, they're just giving up gobs of fantasy points, more so in the passing game. But, if he's playing, they're going to give him touches. Now, he's probably not going to get 20-plus carries and, 5 to 10 receptions, but he's going to get something that's, and with as depleted as the running back market is right now, I mean, if he's out there, you got to give him a shot. What do you think, Bryce?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think if he plays, they're going to give him at least 10 to 15 touches. And unless you are one of the very few people this year that have great, healthy running backs, you probably are forced to start him if he is playing.
I agree. As crazy as this world is, it's not crazy enough for me to sit Christian McCaffrey if he's active. So, assuming or pretending or whatever the word is I'm trying to find here, if CMC is active, you're the Mike Davis owner. What do you do with him this week?
I think you can still play him. I mean, like I said, until he's 100% and good to go, Davis has still got a role. They're confident and comfortable with him. So I think you can play them both. And even when CMC's 100%, I think Davis still has some kind of low end flex potential just because of how weak running backs are right now. Now, once guys like Austin Eckler and some of these other guys come back, then Davis really does start to slide down into the he might not be playable category. But right now, I mean, there's plenty of action to go around. And Carolina still wants to be I don't want to say run first, but they want to lean on the run to set up the pass. That's just the way the offense is predicated. What about you, Bryce?
Yeah, I think he would be maybe a 1 week for sure start. I think, when Christian McCaffrey comes back, I think you hit it perfectly where he's like a running back 1 right now and then goes to potential flex play. But I think if Christian McCaffrey does come back the first week, I still think Mike Davis got that running back 2 value for a week, maybe 2, if you're lucky. Sully?
I agree with you both. I think that it's probably a 50-50 kind of situation if he comes back this week. If they wait till next week, I think you're looking at Mike Davis in an 8 to 10 touch a week kind of role and really game flow dependent. So I agree with you both. Moving on to my next little news and notes piece. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed free agent wide receiver Antonio Brown, proving to everyone, if they didn't know it already, that Tom Brady gets what Tom Brady wants. So he's eligible to return from suspension in week 9. What is Antonio Brown's fantasy value rest of season, Mr. Menendez?
It's getting to the point where, I'm not sure I want any of the receivers on this team because I don't trust them. Week to week, who's going to get the action? I mean, Gronk appears to be getting into form, and Brady, as we know, trusts him. So I feel confident Gronk is kind of pushing his way into the tight end 1 category, which is what we all talked about preseason that we kind of thought he'd get there. Rojo, as much as I know it pains some of the guys that are on the team, he's consistently producing even with Leonard Fournette there. So I'm confident in him right now. But receiver-wise, I don't know. I would probably look elsewhere. I'm sure Antonio Brown's going to get looks. Probably 3 to 5, 6 targets a game, maybe, I guess, would be his ceiling. If I had to guess, that's my, what he makes with those targets, who knows? I mean, he's a big play threat when he's on the field. I mean, we saw it last year in the 1 game he had with Brady. Brady loved him, but Bryce would know better than the rest of us because he's that Pats insider. He knows all things New England. So, Bryce, what's your take on all this? How is this going to go?
So first, Ronald Jones' time there is now numbered. Leonard Fournette was way more efficient. He's a better pass-catching back. I think he had more yards on less touches as well, or at least more yards per carry. So Ronald Jones' time is limited. People will come right back down to earth. But I think Antonio Brown comes in and sees the most targets. It might not be right away, but I think near the most probably important time of the year for fantasy owners, especially teams that are going to be possibly making the playoffs, I think Antonio Brown is that guy that Tom Brady looks to more drive the ball down the field. He's got his red zone targets and Gronk and Mike Evans, and it just seems like he's been using kind of Godwin, Scotty Miller as the guys to kind of move the ball down the field. And Godwin hasn't been staying healthy, and it just doesn't seem like he and Brady have the connection that people thought they would get. And that's probably due to him being hurt and not being able to practice and getting more of a rhythm. So I think Antonio Brown comes in. I know Antonio Brown also doesn't have like a ton of practice time with Brady, but in the 1 game that they did have together, Brady did look to him a lot, which isn't saying much of who else was grabbing targets from them. But I just you saw it right away that it seems like Antonio Brown can gel with any sort of quarterback that he goes to. So I think he's got definitely wide receiver 1 upside, but I can realistically see him being more of a high end wide receiver 2 option. Sully?
I put together an article for rotoheat.com, and I did a Antonio Brown rest of season value piece, and I took it and broke it down game by game, and I started it off, starts off week 9 against New Orleans. I'm like, I'll ease him in. His first game with Brady, his only game with Brady, had 8 targets, 4 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. I think that's a reasonable expectation in terms of volume. I don't know if he scores or has that many yards, but his schedule gets really good. And where I really love Antonio Brown is the fantasy playoffs. So week 14, he gets Minnesota. Week 15, he gets Atlanta. And week 16, he gets Detroit. So those 3 games alone where he's probably up to full speed by then, I agree with you. I think he's a wide receiver 2 this year. I think he's going to have wide receiver 1 weeks. And I think the wide receiver 1 weeks are going to come when it matters the most in the fantasy playoffs. So I'm pretty jazzed about him coming back, and I am currently trying to acquire him in a lot of different spots. So do you start him in week 9, Bryce?
Obviously, this would be definitely team dependent, but I would not feel bad starting him. Although there's a lot of wide receivers that have stepped up this year, and I feel like I already got good situations at wide receiver. There's one league where it just depends on the matchup. I probably won't be starting him until I see it, but there's another league where I'm desperate, and I feel absolutely fine starting him. Brad?
This year, anything's possible. You know what? As soon as he signed, I traded away the few shares I had. Like I'm good. Like everybody else can take that adventure. When he's on the field, he's a superstar. So I mean, with the way Tampa's running, Brady's averaging like 38 pass attempts a game. I mean, at 38, with the way he distributes the ball, you should be able to get something out of him. I mean, when you're having to start guys like Travis Fulgham and Jalen Guyton because they're getting targeted, Antonio Brown's a step up from these guys. I mean, so I think you're comfortable starting him, but don't think he's going to be huge because he has to get back into game shape. Like, there's nobody that's just going to walk right back onto the field and be good to go. It's going to take him time. He's got to get up to speed with things. And we also have to figure out the X factors. Does Bruce Arians like him enough to put him on the field? I mean, because Bruce Arians has never given me the warm fuzzies that he's even interested. So he may be doing it to make Tom feel good, but
it's quite the opposite. Arians told media earlier in the offseason that there was not a fit in his locker room for Antonio Brown, that he was a diva.
So,
but hey, wins are what it's all about, and Tom Brady wants that man to throw the football to. And it's quite possible Antonio Brown will step onto the field as the healthiest wide receiver that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have as well.
Good.
So I would try not to start him in his first week. But to Brad's point, if my options are Nelson Aguilar or Antonio Brown, it's pretty straightforward who I'm going to be rolling out there.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. So let's do, we got anything going, Brad, or you want me to keep rolling?
Okay, so CXK, our boy CXK, shout out to the man, the myth, the CXK. If I can get Rieger for a 2021 second-round rookie pick, should I do it? Absolutely. You guys can also answer, but that's
slam
an
down that
accept,
accept button. Here's the reality. Rieger was a first-round pick this season, and he has done absolutely nothing to diminish his value other than he's been injured. So I'm slamming the accept button on that trade all day. Bryce?
Yeah, I'll take the Rieger side.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and we've kind of shameless plug for the Devi Show. We've started prepping for 2021 rookie content. So we kind of did a way too early 1 QB and Superflex mock, and they're up here on YouTube for you guys that haven't seen them. And we went through, and it's a deep draft class. Even with guys like Jalen Waddle getting hurt, there's a lot of talent coming out in 2021. But Rieger still, like when I'm looking through the players that are coming out, and I compare guys like Rieger and Higgins and some of them, they'd still be on the top of my list, even in the 2021 class, because this is a really talented group in the 2020 class. So if you can get Rieger, he would still be my first round pick, like one of my first wide receivers taken, even with this class too. So I love it. I would do it in a heartbeat. That's crazy if somebody is giving up Rieger that low. I had to wrestle with that.
You got to figure he slides right into Djax's role too, you would think, right?
Well, he comes back, and
Yeah.
who's going to compete with him other than Fulgham? I mean, Wentz hasn't really trusted
Greg
anyone
Ward.
else. Did you say Greg
Well,
Ward?
Fulgham on one side,
Yeah.
Rieger on the other, right?
I think it has to.
My man Richard Rodgers kicking it in the middle.
Goddard will be back soon, right?
Hey.
What do we get? 3 more weeks before
Yeah,
Goddard?
he should be back.
Week
Should be
10,
back
I
for
hear.
10. So a couple weeks still.
Because they're on bye in week 9, right? So he's not going to play this week. They're on bye in 9. He'll be back for week 10. Pretty excited about that personally.
Yeah. And you how can you not be? Because Rieger, even with all the guys healthy, it would still been their most talented receiver on the field. I mean, he's very dynamic. He can make the big stuff. He's a good route runner. I mean, it'll be big for him. They need some receivers that are healthy and good. You know, that's been their problem. So, Tacky T, in a redraft, I have Kittle. Should I trade Jonnu Smith for DJ Shark? I could still pick up Dallas Goedert too. So he has Kittle. Should he be trading Jonnu Smith for DJ Shark? I know how Mr. Sullivan's going to respond to this one, but I'll let you start on this one, Mr. Sullivan.
I have a follow-up question for Tacky T, and is it can you flex a tight end? Is my first question. The next piece is absolutely not. DJ Shark, the man, the myth, the 4 good game career wide receiver? No, nothing there. Move on. Keep Jonnu. If you're going to move Jonnu, get a legit return for him. Bryce?
Yeah, I think you could do better than DJ Chark for Jonnu Smith, but you got to pick up Goddard off the waiver wire. Do that for sure, because
I missed that part.
Right, I would have no problem starting 2 times. I've done it several times, and it's usually guys like a lot of leagues this year. I had Noah Fant and Jonnu Smith, and I start both of them. Seems like a lot of times with all the injuries. But if anything, you could also. I wouldn't feel bad about trading any of those 3 tight ends and improving whatever you need on your team. So, but you can do better at DJ Chark for Jonnu.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I would probably, with the way Jonnu's been playing, and he's kind of been fighting a little bit of a nagging injury, I'd probably look to trade him, but I would want more. I would probably want something like a high-end wide receiver 2 for him. If you can get somebody that's willing to part, especially if somebody, look at your draft, somebody who went wide receiver early, maybe took a couple wide receivers in the first 3 or 4 rounds. That would be who I would target, because they're probably hurting at a tight end or something like that. But I would want somebody.
Hey, what about picking up Goddard and Kittle?
That's what I was saying. Yeah, I would trade.
Roll with Goddard and Jonnu.
I mean, the issue I have with that is we know Kittle was hurt early in the year, but Jonnu's been fighting injury now. So if you've got 2 guys that are fighting injury in a redraft, I don't hate it. I mean, obviously Kittle's going to get you the biggest return, but I don't know. Like that would be a struggle for me, because if Jonnu continues to be hurt, then you're having to waste a roster spot to go get the Berkser because you need a backup because Goddard's not back for 2 weeks. So you just had to be careful there. I wouldn't be opposed to it if somebody's not buying Jonnu for what you want, and somebody is willing to buy Kittle. Well, sure, roll the dice. I mean,
Yeah, I would not make that move until Goddard was back.
Yeah, Kittle doesn't move until he comes.
It's a good point. You now have 2 tight ends that are sort of one hobbled and one coming back, so perhaps that isn't the greatest idea. It's a good point.
You got to be careful there in redraft, but in a dynasty, obviously you can do things look different. Totally. Let's see here. Okay, so Tack T, if you have any more follow-ups on that, let us know. Richie Rich wants to know what's y'all's take on Denzel Mims. So he is back. He's been back. I think he played this last week, didn't he? He got a little bit of action.
He did, yeah.
So, Bryce, what do you think about Denzel Mims?
That's the Jets wide receiver, right? I mean, it's the Jets. It's hard to tell. So I was actually thinking about this because I have a big buddy that's a Jets fan, and it's like that whole team, their fantasy value right now is obviously in the drain. There's nobody really worth having other than Jamison Crowder when he's healthy. But next year, if they get Trevor Lawrence, I feel like everybody get excited about all their wide receivers and then even maybe their running back if they can, fix their O-line up a little bit. So he might be exciting for the future if this is more of a dynasty or even not necessarily more of a dynasty question. But in the first game, I think he did decent. I was watching that game a little bit. Didn't he have just a couple catches and nothing spectacular?
I think he had 4 targets.
So right. Didn't he have 3 or 4? Did he have 3 catches with it? I think
2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
So yeah, I'm looking right now.
That team, that team has just like nobody, really young and exciting for their future. So maybe he can somewhat be that guy. So, and if we're talking, is the main purpose of this stream, he's going to probably sit on the waiver wire and never get picked up unless he has a couple good games. But in Dynasty, I would get a little bit excited about him because the Jets the Jets are on track to be the first pick and may address that quarterback position. So, what do you think, Brad?
He did have 7 targets. He caught 4 of those for 42.
7.
Yeah, 42 yards. So 10 and a half yards a catch. So, that's not a great catch rate. I mean, he's above 50%, but
I'd like to see what he does.
Ring of honor with that production.
Yeah.
I liked Mims coming out, so I'm still a fan. If he's available, I would get him. Redraft, I'm not obviously touching him yet.
Right.
But in a dynasty, I mean, if he's available, I get him. And actually, I think it might have been in the Antonio Brown trade. I found a way to work either Mims or Rieger in the deal. I don't remember now. I'd have to check. I know I got Rieger and Mims in trades here recently for teams that are rebuilding. So
nice.
Those are guys I target. Those young receivers that were drafted highly that I liked. What about Sullivan? Did you answer?
No, I don't have much to add. I was not really that high on Denzel Mims coming out. He seemed to me, and I'm not the Devi or the rookie guru that you guys are, but he seemed really green to me as a receiver, and that he would be a bit of a project. Unfortunately, he got injured in the limited training camp that we had, and his first game was this week. I think what's a bonus for him is Perriman cannot stay healthy and cannot stay on the field, and I'm not sure Crowder can either. Chris Herndon's a massive disappointment, and they have no running game. So it's going to get volume, so that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And, there's a follow-up kind of comment on here, and it is he worth a stash in a dynasty league? And I think he absolutely 100% is that. To Bryce's point, if we're looking at it from a redraft perspective, he's not a guy you should have on your roster right now, but he is a guy you should have your eye on just because he's probably going to get 10 to 12 targets a week if he can be on the field.
Absolutely. Okay, so what else do we got? Joss Whedon. Welcome back. Eno Benjamin. Is he worth a stash before people jump on him next week?
I tried picking him up everywhere in Dynasty this week. Sadly, he was owned in most of my leagues. So, but I like Eno Benjamin at Arizona State. Arizona State, is that correct? I think so.
Yeah, he was in Arizona.
Nice, I got one right. I liked him, and what I really like about his game is his ability to catch the football out of the backfield. So he can be a complement to Chase Edmonds. I don't think he will be for early on, but I think he's a pass catching. So if Edmonds assumes the Drake role, Eno's capable of a poor man's Chase Edmonds, if that makes any sense. So he's worth having on your roster, in my opinion, in Dynasty, not a redraft relevant player. Right?
Yeah, I agree. And Chase Edmonds, he looks like the more exciting back when he gets the ball in Arizona. And obviously he's kind of going to be the man for a while. And it seems like he never disappoints. So I agree with you, Sully. I'm not looking at him in redraft, but in Dynasty leagues, I've looked for him. But he's getting picked up in a lot of leagues. Brad?
Yeah, I mean, I'd stash him. I like him. He wasn't my favorite at all. He definitely has. I wouldn't necessarily compare him to a poor man's Chase Edmonds just because Edmonds is a pretty dynamic guy out of the backfield with the ball in his hands or even out on the edge as a receiver. But he had some nice wiggle to his game and nice vision. So I would definitely stash him if he's available, but I'm really surprised if he's available at all. Now, Jaws, if this is Dynasty, he really should have been rostered anyway, so you definitely got to stash him. If this is redraft, obviously, I mean, you can if you have the space, because we know running backs have been such a wasteland here lately. You know, so yeah, that's my take on that.
John's only asks us dynasty questions.
Oh yeah, Jaws is the one that said I only ask Dynasty.
He don't care what
that's
show it is,
right.
man. He's
That's
here
right,
every
that's
show
right.
and he doesn't
Right.
care.
He said that.
Thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah.
Stupid redraft.
I know, right? See,
Yeah, exactly.
see, the nice thing about redraft, you know, like in Dynasty, if you make a bad decision, like I have a few Dynasties that obviously started up this year because of COVID, you know, everybody's starting leagues and we jumped on. If you made bad decisions, you're basically rebuilding after year one. Like a couple of those, I drafted guys like Le'Veon Bell and some of these guys that really did me no good. I'm now rebuild mode, so I've been selling some of these pieces off. You know, in a redraft, I'm like, who cares? Slate's clean. I get to try again next year.
Totally.
CXK says, thanks, guys, for all your hard work. Heat. Yes, thank you, CXK. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are. MathQuest, welcome back. I remember that name from last week. For my wide receiver 2 position, would you play Fulgham or Marquise Brown? So let's see this week's schedule, because off the top of my head, I don't remember this week's schedule.
Steelers for
I'm going Fulgham.
Ravens?
I don't even care. Yeah, Steelers and Ravens.
The Eagles get the gift of all time, the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, dude, Fulgham. The Cowboys are selling pieces of that defense. You know they're giving up. Young guys are playing. Fulgham's going to eat. Marquise Brown's going against the Steelers, who appear to be the steel curtain of old, man. 6-0, they're just beating people up. What do you think, Bryce?
Oh yeah, absolutely Fulgham. I think I told you guys last week that in one league I haven't been the best at keeping my eye on the waiver wire, and I was like, I watched Fulgham play, and I was like, I always miss these guys. I'm always a week late. It seems like I'm gonna blow half my wallet on Fulgham and just hope for the best. And I think I just got lucky because I just happened to watch him. He gets plenty of targets. He seems like in the good targets he gets, he catches. I love Travis Fulgham, and it looks like he's kind of made his way to a pretty good starting spot there in a depleted wide receiver corps in Philadelphia, and he might just be there to stay. So I do like him on a more consistent basis. Now, if you're looking for ceiling, then Hollywood Brown might be a better option because you never know if he's going to have that 4 catches, 2 touchdown kind of game. But if you're looking for a solid floor and a decent ceiling, I'm going to go Fulgham.
Yep. Sullivan, did you answer?
100%
Okay.
agree.
Yeah.
Fulgham's my 18th ranked wide receiver this week, and I think I'm too low.
Yeah, could be.
Let's hope.
All right, so Matt Daly. Welcome, Matt Daly. I haven't seen that name before. Need 2 wide receivers and a flex. Full PPR. So his receiving options are Cooper Kupp, A.J. Green, Leonard Fournette, Jarvis Landry, CeeDee Lamb, McKinnon, and Gio. So 2 wide receivers and a flex. So the wide receivers on this are Kupp, A.J. Green, Jarvis Landry, CeeDee Lamb. So who are your 2 receivers? So let's start. Matt Daly, we're going to break this up into 2. So the 2 receivers. Cooper Kupp, obviously, is a guarantee. But then you got A.J. Green, Jarvis Landry, and CeeDee Lamb. So, Mr. Sullivan, who is your second receiver? A.J. Green.
I think I'm going to go. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I will go with Jarvis with Odell, sadly, on the sidelines. His targets went way up after that injury, and I think it will continue. Him and Baker have always got along anyway. So, and I agree, it's Cooper Kupp. Even though he's been a little bit of a disappointment, I don't see how you don't start him. Bryce?
I agree. If you look also, Baker Mayfield's stats when Odell Beckham left the field went up as well. So maybe when you have a player like that and you try and force something that's not organic, like Baker had with Jarvis before Odell came, it kind of just improves performance on not having to have that pressure of making sure your superstar gets the ball. So I just traded for Jarvis Landry less than an hour before the games this past Sunday with Rick I was on the live stream. We did it on the
you guys, that deal went through. Nice.
Yeah, we made the trade on the stream, and Odell happens to get hurt that game. That game. So it looked a little bit better for my end on the wide receiver that I took on that. So I'm going Jarvis on that one.
Yeah, I think you have to.
Now the
I
flex.
mean, CD Lamb would be in the conversation if Dallas wasn't a dumpster fire right now. But nobody who's
100%.
Right.
Amari Cooper's
Or
not
if
throwing
Dak was
passes.
still there.
Yeah, Dak was there. All right, so in the flex now. So then in the flex, you've got either AJ Green, Leonard Fournette, CD Lamb, McKinnon, or Gio.
Is Joe Mixon going to play this next game?
Oh, let's find
I
out.
don't think so.
Who do the Bengals play?
They play Tennessee.
Yeah, he's still questionable, but he's been out of practice. So if he's not practicing, he probably ain't playing. Would be my guess. And obviously, they still have 2 more days of practice.
I'm going with AJ Green. He's been targeted and he's been productive. And, he's kind of like Gronkowski to me in a way that takes these guys a while to work their way back. Brad, that point you made about game shape earlier, I think that's what we're seeing a little bit with AJ Green. He was targeted a ton early on from Burrow, didn't do much. The targets went away from him, but they've kind of come back and he's been productive the last couple of games. I'm going to roll AJ out there. Bryce?
I think I'm gonna go with CD Lamb. He's only had that one bad game, which was last week. All the other games he's at least scored, I believe, 10 points, or he's got that double digits. Yeah, every other game since. So I'm still gonna stick with CD Lamb. If you ask me like 3 or 4 weeks from now, I'm probably gonna tell you Leonard Fournette. But for now, I'm gonna stick with CD Lamb in that flex spot.
Man, I hope you're right.
Yeah, this is a tough one. CD Lamb's the most talented guy, but I got to go AJ Green just because Burrow's facing a Tennessee defense that appears to be liking to allow the passing yards. So give me AJ Green. I'm not 100% confident. It could really be any one of those guys. I mean, we could be sitting here next week and McKinnon or Gio is the guy who has that big blow-up game, and it wouldn't surprise me the way 2020's gone.
If Mixon is out, I would seriously consider Gio. He has been incredibly productive every time that he's gotten a start in the Mixon era when Mixon's been out. So that's definitely something to keep your eye on.
Yeah, so let's see here. All right, so Josh Whedon, Le'Veon Bell revenge game this weekend versus the Jets, or does Andy keep him out of the not-so-friendly fire? Dude, Le'Veon Bell wouldn't surprise me if he put up like 150, like 2 touchdowns just for the fun of it. I mean,
big revenge game coming.
I mean, everybody eats against the Jets.
You think he does? You think that Andy Reid puts him in just for that, or you think he? I don't think he's gonna. I think he's gonna. Is just gonna be a second kind of guy, maybe a similar situation in Green Bay where it might be every other drive or something like that. But I think he's gonna stick with keeping CH's confidence up and putting him in. I think clutch situations for playoff time. Personally, that's what I think.
Yeah.
That game has a 20.5. I think that Kansas City absolutely blows the living doors off of them. The game's over at halftime, and Bell plays the second half and runs wild.
Okay.
I'd be all right with that. All right, so I love this name already. Snaggy Reacts _TV. That's a sweet name. Who should I start at running back? Zeke, Boston Scott, or Myles Gaskin? Bryce.
Zeke, Boston Scott, and Myles Gaskin. That what he's asking?
Yep.
Yeah, you gotta stick with Zeke still. I think he's only had one bad fantasy game, and that was this past week, I believe. All the other games, even though he might not be the best football player on the field, he's still been super good fantasy wise. For example, the game he had 2 fumbles. I think he still put up about 20 fantasy points just because of PPR points and things like that. So I'm never benching Zeke for those 2 guys unless he's injured, obviously. Sully?
Zeke was RB3 with Dak, and he's been RB24 with the combination of Andy Dalton and Ben DiNucci. I don't care. I am starting Ezekiel Elliott over Boston Scott. And sorry, who's the other? Oh, Gaskin?
Yeah.
Myles Gaskin.
I might consider Gaskin for a couple of minutes over Scott, but no, it's Zeke without question for me.
Yeah, he's the most talented. You got to ride your studs, even if your studs are getting blasted by teams that are loading the box because they don't have to worry about the passing game. I mean, there's just more consistency there. I mean, I know Boston Scott's got some delicious PPR value, but give me the big guy. Give me Zeke. He'll figure it out, and things will be fine. All right, so next up, our boy Jason. SF trade. So he sent Fulgham for Troutman and a third. Was that a win? And it's an early third. So Travis Fulgham or Adam Troutman, the Saints tight end, rookie tight end, and an early third.
I'm going Fulgham. I like Fulgham there. So if he gave away Fulgham, I'm sorry. I think you lost. But
so you,
I guess it all depends on.
So you think Fulgham lasts long term?
The way he's playing, I can't see who steps into the number 2 position. So say Rieger comes in and he's what he's expected to be. You know, he's panning out like the rest of these rookie wide receivers that are lighting it up in the league. Who steps in that number 2 spot? Greg Ward, Alshon Jeffrey. I don't even know if Alshon Jeffrey's ever going to play again. So I think Fulgham definitely has earned a starting role on that team. Even if he doesn't and he gets the number 3 spot, I still like him there. Carson Wentz looks his way a lot. So I like Fulgham over those 2 options. Brad, or Sully, I'll let you think about it, Brad. Sully?
I think what's interesting to me is the pick more than the player. Trotman doesn't really do much for me. I think I like the Fulgham side here too, because at the very least, what he's doing is he's buying himself 2021 in that offense. This prevents the Eagles from having to draft a wide receiver with draft capital again. They're going to try to move Alshon if they can. Djax's got to be done. Hightower's not taking Fulgham's job. Greg Ward's not taking Fulgham's job. When Goddard comes back, it'll be interesting because I think he'll be featured a little bit more across the middle of the field and especially in the red zone. But I don't know. I think I like Travis Fulgham in this transaction. Brad?
I don't hate either side. So Adam Troutman was probably my second tight end in this draft class, but it was a weak class, so it's not like it was, this a really sexy option. I don't hate the trade either way. So my guess, Jason, is you think Fulgham is not much more than a guy who's playing for this year and maybe depth in the future. I don't know if that's the case because Philly's really they've had such a hard time with healthy receivers on the team, and Fulgham so far has been everything they've needed. He hasn't helped them do anything, though. Like, they aren't winning because he's on the field, so I don't know how much value he really provides them long-term. Because this team, I could easily make the case that this team looks completely different next year on the offensive side of the ball because there's something wrong there. They're not putting it together. The defense isn't great, but it's not the thing that's killing them. That offense has just been all over the place. So I don't hate the trade. I don't love it either, though. Like, if it was Troutman in like an early second, I'd be like, okay, the 2021 class, I mean, there'll be a more talented option there. Early third, there's still going to be a talented option, but right now with Fulgham being as hot as he is, I'd be squeezing that for as much as I can. Now, if you needed tight end help, I think Troutman in 2 years is going to be a guy that people are going to want. So you're going to have to sit on him because he needs time to develop. He came from a smaller school and is going to need some time. So, I mean, you really spend it to sit on a pick and sit on a player. So if your team is rebuilding and not a contender, good on you. Get a pick, get a player, whatever. I don't hate the trade. I mean, it isn't like the sexiest trade either, but it's not Sully sexy, that's for sure. Speaking of that, Shannon Lee over on Facebook says, Sully with multiple exclamation points. That's how awesome you are.
That's so nice.
Josh Whedon. Eno was
our name.
Eno was available in 3 out of my 4 dynasties. Made space for him in 1. Wow. I think he was like a 3rd round pick in a lot of rookie drafts.
Yeah, 3rd. I think I got him in the 4th and 1, but yeah.
All right, so Austin.
He had a really good junior year, if I recall, and then he kind of tailed off a little bit in his last year in college, but yeah.
Austin Smith over on YouTube. Who at the flex Jarvis Landry, Brandon Ayuk, or Nelson Aguilar. Man, Aguilar. He's producing finally. Like weeks in a row, multiple weeks in a row, even on small amount of
3.
targets, right? 3. Yeah, he's had a touchdown last 3 weeks running. Bryce, what do you think about those? Who are you putting in at the flex? Ayuk with Debo down.
I'm still putting Jarvis Landry for sure. If you would have told me, at the beginning of this year, before last year, in 2020, Nelson Aguilar would have a couple good weeks in a row, and Ronald Jones would rush for 100 yards in 3 straight games, I would laugh in your face. But it's a crazy year. Nelson Aguilar seems to be not terrible in that offense, and they just have kind of like a lot of deep threat guys with like Ruggs and Aguilar, and it seems like he's looking for Aguilar a lot more. He gets a lot more targets. Through the game. So I wouldn't be like mad about starting him in my flex and other options. But if you got a guy like Jarvis Landry, who is now the number 1 wide receiver on his team, with everybody else beat up at the tight end positions, obviously beat up. Odell's gone. Their main starting running back's also gone, and he's been with Baker for I don't know how many years now, 4, I believe. I'm going to go with Jarvis for sure. Sully?
Yeah, I am too. What makes it closer, though, is the half PPR compared to full PPR. So Jarvis is not typically much of an A-dot type of wide receiver, so he's not going to get a ton yard-wise, but he does get a lot of volume, which leads to catches. So those half points will add up. Deebo Samuel's out for a couple of weeks, it looks like. So Ayuk is the man next to Kittle. So that's something to think about. And Aguilar is fun. I can't trust that. Like sooner or later, it's midnight. He turns back into a pumpkin, in my opinion. I'm going to go with Jarvis Landry, but the half-point PPR makes me sort of want Ayuk in that running game upside that he has. How about you, Brett?
Yeah, I got to agree. I kind of leaned Ayuk at first, but Jarvis, I mean, you can't hate Jarvis. Like, he's just so good. He catches everything that's thrown his way. He just may not get you huge yards, but he'll probably get you a touchdown. He'll probably get you 7 or 8 catches. I mean, it's just too good to pass up. The consistency's there. So,
does Seattle change your mind at all?
No, I don't know. Depends on which San Francisco team shows up. Like, if Jimmy Garoppolo is consistent and actually looks like a quarterback, then yeah, Ayuk's definitely playable. But if we get the Jimmy G that doesn't know what he's doing and looks discombobulated, and they don't have a running game and can't set up the pass, I mean, they become one-sided. They can't do what they need to do. So I would take Jarvis just because I trust him and I trust the matchup. I mean, Cleveland going against the Raiders it's not like the Raiders are bringing in this stout defense, so they can be passed on very easily.
Yes, sir.
All right. Also, Austin's asking, Noah Fant or Harrison Bryant at tight end? Ooh, that's a tougher question. Denver's got the Chargers, but Noah Fant's been very up and down with the injury, and Albert Okuigbunam has built in that relationship with his former college quarterback. So that's a tougher conversation. I mean, Austin Hooper is still questionable. Njoku, you hear trade talk, so what's going on there? Bryce, what do you think? Are you starting Fant, who's clearly the better talent, or Bryant, who's getting an opportunity?
I'm still going to start Fant. I know that he was, probably he was outperformed by the other tight end there against the Chiefs. And the Chiefs' second defense is not bad. People think that any wide receiver or tight end or running back that plays the Chiefs, you got to start up and they get PPR value. But Noah Fant always sees at least 5, 6, 7 plus targets every single week. I think he's got the talent to be in that top tier tight end talk by the end of this year, definitely next year. So I'm still going to start. I consider him one of the studs now, and I think you should always start your studs. So I'm gonna start Noah Fant.
Yeah, I am too. I just don't feel very good about it, to be totally honest with you. But I don't know if Bryant's going to be relevant either. I think, when we talk about Jarvis and we talk about Odell not being there, I also think what's really interesting is it just gives the opportunity for the Browns to run even more. and you can also run all over the Raiders. So I think that's probably the primary focus. But Brian could easily get in the end zone again. What I found interesting about watching the Broncos game last week was, I don't know if Fant's all the way back from his injury, because both Nick Vanette and, I'll call him Albert O because I can't pronounce his last name like Brad can, were really relevant in that game. So I'm still starting Fant. I just hope he scores.
Yeah, I'm going Fant too, just because he's clearly the better tight end all around. Even though Bryant's getting action, and he could see increased action with OBJ out and them needing to be more maybe 2 tight end sets. We know that Stefanski loves the 2 tight end sets anyway, so if Hooper's not on the field, Bryant would be. But Nate McGuire over on YouTube, thoughts on Seattle's defense with Dunlap and DPJ? Is he seems like he might gain a role in that offense. So 2 questions. Seattle's defense adding Carlos Dunlap, how do you guys feel about that? And then DPJ, was it a mirage one week, or is he going to get some love?
I'm going to leave the defensive question to you. The only thing in my understanding is he wasn't very popular on his way out of Cincinnati. So I don't know if he's a problem child or not. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a guy I kind of liked coming out, and I think he's their wide receiver 3, so he'll get some looks. I just don't know if he's going to be a guy that is fantasy relevant week in and week out. He's probably going to be very matchup dependent and game script. So start him in games where they're going to lose and have to throw a lot would be my only suggestion. Bryce?
Yeah, Seattle's defense with Dunlap, I mean, it helps them, but they're not putting up very good numbers fantasy-wise, and I don't think adding a defensive lineman is gonna help that, because it seems like they get thrown on a lot. And with Donovan Peoples-Jones, I watched him. Obviously, I was a Ohio State fan, so I'd watch him play against in Michigan. I always thought he was like kind of their best player on offense, I guess, which isn't saying much. No offense, Brad. But
you keep saying that when Joe Milton comes knocking here in a few weeks.
Oh my God! Please, I give Michigan credit. They did not look bad this past Saturday.
Well, Minnesota didn't even have a kicker, so what do you expect?
Right, right.
Their professional team doesn't usually either.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But like I was saying, Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's got a perfect opportunity with Odell hurt and him stepping up in the little, the time he got this last week, that they're going to definitely give him more opportunity with that performance. But I can almost see it kind of being like a Antonio Callaway kind of situation where he kind of steps up when people are down and gets people excited, and then ends up not really doing much for his career. So I see more of that route for him, but I hope I'm wrong. It's always good to see young players step up and seize the opportunity. What do you think, Brad? You have a personal connection with Donovan Peoples-Jones, so what do you think?
I love the player. He would have gone higher if Michigan had anything at quarterback. I mean, the talent's there, and obviously we saw it. In this big game, they needed a touchdown. They went to him, and he brought it in. I mean, you can't fake that. When the lights come on, this kid shows up. So I think he plays his way into a role because he's a better athlete than Higgins. He's better than any other options they have. So even though he's a rookie, give it time. Obviously, I don't expect him to be huge quickly. This week was great, but I would see him probably still only getting 3 or 4 targets a game as the time goes on. Because, again, he's probably what? So Jarvis, Hooper, Bryant, what is he, 4 or 5 with the running backs, with the running backs involved as the passing option number 5. I mean, I like him long term. I think he's an awesome player. I hated that Michigan wasted him and Tariq Black. They're both really good, talented guys. Dunlap, on the other hand, immediately makes Seattle's defensive line better because now they have an actual pass rusher. Seattle's terrible at drafting defensive ends. I mean, they drafted Collier in the first round, and they put so many early draft picks in defense, and they just haven't produced. So they were smart to go get Dunlap. Anybody who's been getting the crap kicked out of him for 10 years is going to leave unhappy. Like, he's been with Cincinnati since 2010. Not like he's seen the glory days. He had Dalton at his finest, and they make it to the playoffs and get the crap kicked out of him a few times. I mean, he probably wasn't happy at this point. And I don't blame a player who's played for 10 years. You know, I'm on the winning side here at Roto Heat, so I don't know what losing looks like. But you know, if I was losing for 10 years straight, I'd probably be upset. There's you know, that's a lot to be said. So I think he comes in and gives them a bump immediately. I don't know that he'll probably get you a few sacks this year. But remember, it's going to take him a couple weeks to get into the lineup because they got to go through protocols. You know, just like the Everson Griffin to Detroit move. He doesn't get to play with them this week, even though he's healthy and ready to roll. You know, he has to wait for a week. And so same thing will go with Dunlap, 1-2 weeks, depending on how he's doing. So I think Seattle's defense, now from a redraft perspective, Seattle's defense, they're always kind of boom or bust. So there's going to be better options on a weekly basis, probably if you're streaming defenses. So just FYI. So hopefully that helped, Nate. Matt Bradley asks, Greg Ward or Jared Cook, Mr. Sullivan?
Looks like Michael Thomas is out and Emmanuel Sanders is out again. This is Jared Cook for me quite easily. Bryce?
I agree. Yeah, it's Greg Ward had maybe a couple of good games, but Jared Cook is he's on a better team that has a lot more touchdown upside. Brad?
Yep, same. Joss Whedon says, Zach Martin's coming back for the boys. Any chance Ben DiNucci survives and shows enough to ward off Andy Dalton? Sullivan, I'll start with you on this one again.
Is Dalton out?
I think he's still in concussion protocol, so probably, unless he can pass it quickly.
I want DiNucci to be good because I want to call him the Nooch. So I don't know if that's going to work for anyone other than me, but I was reading a little bit about them actually liking Garrett Gilbert, who's their third string quarterback, who I know nothing about. So if that's the talk, how much do we really like Ben DiNucci? And I don't think one member of that offensive line, albeit a very talented one coming back, is going to make that much of a difference. I'm pretty darn worried about the Cowboys other than Amari Cooper and Ezekiel Elliott. Bryce?
I don't know why the Cowboys don't call on the player that's been asking to come out of retirement for a while, and Brett Favre at this point. No, I'm just kidding. Their quarterback situation is obviously terrible, even when Dalton is out. And it's very similar to a few teams. I obviously am a Patriot fan, so it's like, if this quarterback's not going to work out, why are you just not trying some of the other guys that haven't got a shot at this point? Andy Dalton proved 2 weeks in a row that he's just not able to do even remotely close what Dak Prescott was able to do, and you need to try and move on. The Cowboys have already had extensive contract issues with Dak and not wanting to pay him the amount of money that he wants. If they can find anything, maybe a hidden gem like they found him, and these backup quarterbacks, I don't see why they wouldn't just go with them anyway, even if Dalton was healthy. But back to the question with Zach Martin being back, obviously it's a huge step up because Zach Martin is one of the best guards, and obviously arguably one of the best guards in the league, and their offensive line has been absolutely pitiful. So I think not only does it help the quarterback with some pressure, but more than anything, I think it helps Zeke, which then correlates to helping the quarterback.
Why don't they just trade for Ryan Fitzpatrick?
I said that last week, didn't I?
Right.
I don't know why
Dalton and what, a conditional 7th for Fitzpatrick? Let's get it done.
I think they could get it for the Dolphins might ask for a little more just in case Tua is not ready. So, but I mean, why not send a 5th? What are you getting at that point in the draft? You're taking stabs at the dark, hoping you get somebody worth it. Like, why can't you get a quarterback that you know is good? He's played on plenty of teams. He throws under pressure really well, and you're only one game behind in the division. So I don't know why they don't make it.
If you're giving up a 5th, make it a 2022 5th just to cover your butt going into 2021. And it's not like the Dolphins need any picks either, right? Like they're laughing,
right.
But free Ryan Fitzpatrick, get him in. That would be so much fun. Get it done.
All right.
Come on, Jerry.
Jerry. What's he going to do? You never know. Snaggy asks, full PPR lineup. Who should I start? Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Travis Fulgham, Myles Gaskin, Boston Scott, Michael Thomas, Ayuk, T. Higgins. He needs 3 wide receivers and 1 flex. So that's why Josh Allen must be in there, because the flex must be super flex. So Stephon Diggs, Travis Fulgham, Myles Gaskin, Boston Scott, Michael Thomas is an out because he's probably not playing. Brandon Ayuk. So 2 running backs. You have 2 running backs listed in Gaskin and Scott. So I guess that's your 2 running backs. 3 wide receivers.
Diggs for sure.
Diggs has to, yeah. T. Higgins should be a good start, or should be fine as well. I think you're kind of set.
Ayuk and Fulgham?
Yeah, I think you.
T. Higgins on that list?
Yeah, the next part down he says and T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk.
Oh,
so he said Ayuk twice. I think your lineups. I think it's kind of setting itself with Michael Thomas being hurt. So 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 flex. I think that's kind of already right there. All those guys are guys that are probably starting for you.
What are we doing? Diggs, Fulgham, and
Higgins, yeah.
With
your wide receivers,
Scott
and
Gaskin.
And then your flex has got to be Josh Allen. So Luke says, full PPR, just traded Zeke and AJ Green for James Robinson and Mike Evans. Then traded Evans and Singletary for Josh Jacobs. So basically he traded Zeke and AJ Green for James Robinson and Josh Jacobs.
I would do that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I don't mind that.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Josh Jacobs is beast, and
James Robinson
has
James Robinson has been
RB6.
He's that player.
He's balling.
Yeah, he's that player that comes out of nowhere that somebody got on the waiver wire early that struck gold.
Yeah.
So he's good. He's gotten to a point where you can't bench him. So
the only concern with him is if they go away from Minshew, I think that's offense is a total dumpster fire. So hopefully they don't do that.
Yeah, they shouldn't.
I don't think they do.
They shouldn't. Nate asks, trade James Robinson for A.J. Brown? He's stacked at running back, he says.
Is this dynasty?
My guess, well, we'll take it from a redraft perspective.
I wouldn't do it in redraft, but I think I would do that in dynasty.
Agree, 100%.
Yeah. I would look at, depending on what your stacked at running back looks like, I would probably look elsewhere, see if you can keep Robinson because he just keeps producing.
Robinson can't be his best running back if that's probably who he's using. Yeah. So I would assume he's got 2 studs up there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Josh says Dontari Bowe just got released from the Cowboys too. They're shedding vets. This defense is about to go from bad to worse.
Can it get worse though?
There was one other player that they informed. So they told Poe and one other player, I believe it was a cornerback.
Yeah, Daryl Worley.
Yeah. We're going to trade you or we're going to cut you. So good times in Dallas.
It can't get worse. Like I said, they're in a situation where it's kind of weird because I guess they're not because they're only 1 game behind, but they are somewhat in a situation where it's like these players aren't working out for you. Get rid of them and let somebody try and shine or give them the opportunity at this point. What can it hurt? That's what I've been saying about a lot of these teams that aren't doing very well. It's like bench these players that aren't working out and see if you find a gem somewhere on that bench that you got there.
Totally.
Yeah. And
I need my Vikings to do that.
Yeah. I need the
Vikings are rumored to be
clean house too.
Yeah, the Vikings are rumored to be shopping Thielen, Anthony Barr, and one other. And I'm like, do it. Just get rid of all of them. Why not?
Brad, why did your team sign a 32-year-old end?
Because they're all in.
Detroit's playoff pushing, baby. They're 3-3. I think nobody told them that they've been either 3-3 or 2-3-1 the last 3 years. So it hasn't gone well then. I don't know what's different now.
Those contract extensions are getting written.
Dude, I may become a Colts fan if they re-sign Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. If they extend these guys, I live in Indy, or forget it. Switching allegiances. I'll become a Colts fan. I don't like Phillip Rivers, but why not?
He ain't back next year. You got nothing to worry about.
No. It's the Kyle Trask show in Indy. That's what I'm calling it. Give me some Kyle Trask in Indy. I love that. All right. I am going to butcher this name, and I apologize in advance. Radvir Ajit says, how do you guys feel about the rumors about Stephon Gilmore to Pittsburgh? If the Patriots are looking to be sellers, I mean, why not? Pittsburgh needs.
Please.
I thought you guys were making a run, man.
No, absolutely. Have you seen our quarterback play? we can't do anything. Well, Cam is not good enough to make. So you go from Brady, who can make average players look good, to Cam Newton, who makes players look like what they are, and he can't make Edelman and N'Keal Harry look better than they are. They're decent players, but the team is just not. It's not working at all.
Nope.
So why are we not? I've been saying, unless we should have either last week tried to buy a bunch of good players and try to make a push, or if you lose this week, you got to sell off everybody. Sell Gilmore. Sell. We don't have much to sell, but sell them and then get as many picks as you can and start your rebuild. I love that rumor. Good for everybody. I think everybody improves in that trade.
Yeah, I mean,
Good for
Pittsburgh would go from just disgusting to even more disgusting. I mean, that's
the best
huge.
defense to even more the best defense.
Does he take Joe Hayden off the field if he goes there? Like, who does he replace in Pittsburgh?
Who's the other corner besides Joe Hayden?
Can't remember.
He replaces anybody there. I mean, Mike Hilton is their slot corner, and then there's Gilmore. I mean, Hayden and hold on, let me pull it up. Whoever the nobody is, he could get rid of him. Steven Nelson is the other corner. So I mean, he comes in and takes over for any of them because Joe Hayden is getting older, so that he's still very intelligent. Obviously, he's definitely locking down that side pretty well. But I mean, he comes in and can take over anybody's spot. I mean, he's better than Hilton. He's better than Nelson. He's better than Hayden. So I'd put him in over anybody. Plaque asked about CMC. CMC is probably not back tomorrow. We're not expecting him back tomorrow, Plaque. But there's potential because he's practicing, but it's definitely a long shot. Blatty Martinez asked Mike Evans or Travis Fulgham. Fulgham, in my mind. I don't know about Evans right now. I don't trust it.
Fulgham's my wide receiver 18, and Evans is my wide receiver 26 this week. I don't want that to be the case, but that is the case. I'm starting Fulgham.
That's hard for sure because you don't want to sit your studs, and Mike Evans is obviously a stud. But it just seems like he's only valuable if the Buccaneers are within the 5-yard line. So until I know he's perfectly healthy and is getting 8 to 10 targets a game with 75% of those being catches with yards, I'm going to go with Fulgham. He's getting 10. I think in the past 3 weeks he's had over 10 targets in all 3 of those games. So I'm going to go with the guy that's getting the volume.
What a world we live in.
It's wild, man, wild.
So glad I got him.
All your monies, hey?
Yeah, right.
$575, I think.
Oh, boy. Good job.
All right, so Matt Bradley asks, if Carson is out and Hyde, should I start Travis Homer or Zach Moss? Mr. Sullivan.
Last I heard that Travis Homer was banged up too, and it could be the DJ Dallas show in Seattle. So check in on Travis Homer. My condolences if your only options are Travis Homer and Zach Moss. I'm going to start Moss because I think he's going to be I don't know. That's not a good matchup against the Patriots either. I'll go with Moss because I think he has a more likelihood of falling down in the end zone with the football in his hands. Bryce?
So Carlos, if both of those, if Homer plays and Moss plays, the Patriots defense is good, not allowing touchdowns, kind of a bend don't break situation there. But they can be ran on. So running backs do end up doing decent against us. So I'm going to go with Homer. I think, and again, I'm going with a team that has more touchdown upside, and the Seahawks use their running backs. Now all of them are involved in the pass game. So I'll go with the starter for Seattle if Carlos Hyde is not playing. Brad?
Yeah, the tough thing is Zach Moss produced his season high 47 yards against the Jets.
They didn't do anything, though.
I mean, it wasn't.
That whole offense didn't do anything.
Yeah.
It looks bad. The whole division looks bad. It's the second worst in football.
The tough thing is.
Did you hear this?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you hear the stat that the Jets had 4 yards in offense in the second half in that game? And they had 4 yards in the second half, and they had 12 yards on their first drive.
How does Gase have a job? Like, what?
How is that possible? What? I love that.
He handed over the play calling duties, okay? It's not his fault.
I want him to stay so badly. It's just so entertaining.
I think at this point, they're like I said, I think they're keeping him because they're tanking. I think, especially at this point, they have to be hearing the rumors that players are telling Lawrence that if the Jets get the first pick to stay, there's no way the Jets are going to be like, well, we're going to stick with our coach and not take this generational quarterback. They're going to get rid of Gase if they go 0-16 or 1-15, whatever they go. And they're gonna and they're gonna be like, we're getting this coach for you. We're changing our whole organization to build around you. That I think the kind of guy that Lawrence is, he's gonna definitely buy into that. I think he goes even if Gase stays, but I don't see the Jets organization doing that to him. I would hope not, at least.
Yeah. I mean, whoever Seattle starter is, I would take that over Buffalo right now. Although Buffalo does have a decent matchup in New England this week, but. Jason asks, Ingram likely out versus Steelers. Is it Dobbins' season or Gus Edwards? Why don't the Ravens just let J.K. cook? Or do you fade both versus Steelers? So, seeing as I know our Ohio State guy knows all the ins and outs of Dobbins, what's your take here, Mr. Frazier?
I think Gus Edwards is the most impressive back when he's on the field. And I think I've talked about it before where sometimes these rookie running backs just have to get – I think he looks the best. I don't necessarily think he's the most talented, but he just looks better. I think, I've talked about it before where I think rookie running backs just have to get a feel. They have to get their confidence, and then they'll start to kind of – they'll look a lot better when you got these veteran guys that get put in there and they just seem more comfortable with the organization and things like that. Gus Edwards, when he gets the ball, is exciting to me. I think I've been saying it almost for a year now that I think he might be their most not talented back, but he's the best back for the touches that he gets. So I think it ends up being a 50-50 split, but I would rather have Gus Edwards starting than JK on my rosters. Sully?
I think it's a split, and I think it's a muddy split. I think Dobbins is the more talented player by far. Mm-hmm. He seems – I haven't watched a lot of Ravens games, but he seems to have trouble hitting his holes. Like it's almost like his vision hasn't adjusted to the pro level. Gus is productive when he gets the football, and he's going to be the guy in the red zone, but Dobbins is going to be the pass-catching option, and they could be trailing in this one. So I just think if you can get away from both of them, I would try to. If you have to, I think the Ravens want to run the football, so I'd probably lean Edwards, but I wouldn't feel good about either one. How about you, Brett?
Yeah, against the Steelers, I would probably fade them both if you have better options. If I had to pick one, probably Gus, but I'd look elsewhere depending on what your roster looks like. Probably Gus, then Dobbins, but anything else might be a better choice because the Steelers didn't stuff Derrick Henry per se, but man, for a while there, they were giving him a really tough go of things. So I'd be careful. Ultra Pot wants to know Josh Kelly, Justin Jackson, or Carlos Hyde in a PPR. I think it's got to be Justin Jackson, with Carlos Hyde being hurt, potentially out. Hyde would have been the play in my mind, but Jackson is kind of the safer guy right now because Josh Kelly is kind of dropped. But what do you guys think?
I'm going to go against the grain and go with Josh Kelly. I think Hyde's banged up, and I think Jackson's banged up. So I don't like the matchup against the Broncos very much, but Kelly's a goal line guy, and he's got a better chance of getting one in there. So I'm going to lean him. I will say Carlos Hyde looked wicked last week when he was on the field, to the point where that touchdown run he had down the sideline, I thought it was Chris Carson. He looked so good. But if he's banged up and he can't go, obviously you're not going there. So I'll take Kelly. How about you, Bryce?
Josh Kelly, to me, has been very disappointing. It seemed like that team wanted to get him rolling, and he just can't find his footing. His yards per carry are not the best. And I think he's talented, but again, I think, like I just went back to, I think sometimes it just takes them to get more comfortable and things like that. If Carlos Hyde's playing the way he looked, I agree with exactly what you said, Sully. He looked great, and if he's playing, I'm 100% going with him. If not, I agree with you. I'm going to go with Justin Jackson.
I just looked at the Chargers stats from last week. Jackson and Kelly both averaged 2.4 yards per carry.
Yeah.
against the Jags.
Any game. I think I'm looking at his stats right now. He's got two games where his yards per carry are not bad, and it's 8 for 43 and 12 for 60. Other than that, the stats are pretty bad. He's got one with less than 1 yard per carry, one with about 2 and some change. So.
Yeah, I don't know there.
There you go. So Eric wants to know Gronk or Mark Andrews. Now,
I think it's still got to be Andrews. Gronk's coming on. Lamar really struggling throwing the football this year, but I think he's still got to go with Andrews. The upside's just way better there. Bryce?
I think this goes to a floor ceiling kind of situation. If you're going with floor, I'm going to go with Gronk, and if you're going to go with ceiling, I'm going to go with Andrews. So if you want that player that gets you kind of that minimum, go with Gronk. If you want that 20-plus possibility, I think Andrews is the guy. Brad?
That's fair.
Yep, I agree. All right, so Charlie Bynum wants to know, trade Zeke for Calvin Ridley in a PPR. Who are some trade targets to get out of Zeke?
I love Calvin Ridley, but I don't think I could do that.
Yeah, in a dynasty, I wouldn't feel bad about doing that at all. But in redraft, with how the running back situation is, unless you got two guys that have been healthy with Zeke the whole year, I think you could get more for Zeke. But if it was a dynasty question, Zeke for Calvin Ridley, I don't think that's far off at all. Brad?
Agree.
Yeah. Trade target wise, in a redraft format, I'm looking for somebody's wide receiver 1, because Zeke I still think is healthy and elite, whether he's producing right now or not. So I'd be looking for a high end piece. Calvin Ridley is certainly in that conversation. I'd probably want a little bit more than Ridley though. So
go for you could go try for Parker, but it'd be harder. Or I'm sorry, not Parker. Devontae Adams, but he just had that big week, so their owner's going to be up on him. Michael Thomas might be a guy you can get. You might just have to wait one more week, hopefully, and then he might be back. So it just depends on what would improve your starting lineup in redraft.
Dial up the CMC owner. Maybe they're desperate for a win this week.
Yeah.
Why not?
Good idea. He hadn't had Mike Davis. He needs something.
Yeah. Anthony Acosta asked, should I start Myles Gaskins, Justin Jefferson, or Brandon Ayuk? I think it's got to be Justin Jefferson, right?
Yeah. Why not?
Well, let me look at Myles Gaskin. I feel like he's been pretty consistent this year, hasn't he?
I think he's like top 20, isn't he?
Let's
take a look.
Yeah. Let's see.
I got to go with Justin Jefferson, though.
Yeah.
The Packers have a decent secondary, and Cousins is a dumpster fire. But Jefferson and Cousins seem to be clicking, and I think I don't know how you go away from that kid right now. He's on fire.
Yeah, I think so too. Matt Bradley asks, is AP now unstartable? So Adrian Peterson unstartable? Yeah, probably. I mean, DeAndre Swift's really the only running back that's getting anything right now. So
you never know on that team, though.
You never know, but I'm not.
You're making a playoff push.
I am not starting him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and leads him in touches again next week.
Yeah,
I think Swift. I think Swift is now officially the guy. So I mean, he's not unstartable because you never know how bad your team could look, but he's pretty close to it.
Robert asks, should I trade Kittle for Aaron Jones? So I'm guessing probably redraft. If it's redrafted,
any format, I'm doing.
Yeah, and really in any format, I'd take Jones over Kittle. What do you think, Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah.
Just say it. Do it.
Yes, especially in redraft, but even in dynasty, I don't care. Yeah. Yes, the top 4 running back, as much as it hurts me.
He's a touchdown machine.
Yeah. If he's
gonna score 8 this week.
If he's healthy,
Like,
he's still
he might not
he's still
play,
not practicing. So,
it's Minnesota. He could score 4 on one leg.
all right, that's that. Questions are answered. People are happy. Hopefully, the world is a better place with all of these things. I hope for you. Thank you guys as always for hanging out with us. Don't forget, if you like the video, if you're enjoying what's going on here with the Roto Heat team, like the video, subscribe, hit the notification icon, do all those things. Check out all the amazing podcasts the Roto Heat team has. Sully's got his podcast. We've got a Devi. We've got an IDP. We've got, obviously, this will probably be in a podcast format as well. We got a lot of different stuff going on. Content is hot and heavy over on rotoheat.com. We've got 2020 stuff that we're getting ready to kick out. So make sure you keep it locked in here. Bryce, thank you. Rob, thank you. We'll talk to you guys next Wednesday.